Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to Coffee with Craig. Interesting weekend for those of you who had a chance to watch the Super Bowl. Hey, don't call it a comeback. They've been here for years. Good job, Patriots. Anyway, feel bad for those of you who are Atlanta Falcons fans. Sorry, I was rooting for the Falcons because I figured, hey, teams never won a Super Bowl before. Why not? But along those lines, best team won. Anyway. So today we're going to talk about no fly, no buy. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing about this, but it's an interesting concept, and here's the reason why. So first of all, for those of you who are unaware of what no fly, no buy is, no fly, no buy is basically where it's basically potential legislation that's being considered in some places that would basically say if you are on some sort of a terrorist watch list, then you should be prohibited from being able to purchase a firearm. Now, on the surface, it sounds like a great idea. I mean, it makes sense. Fine, if you're a terrorist, if you're a potential terrorist, then no, you shouldn't have easy access. You shouldn't be able to just walk into a gun store and buy a gun. But here's the problem with that. The problem with it is that anyone who's taken any amount of time to study any of the terrorist watch list knows these very simple facts. First of all, the terrorist watch list, in particular under the Obama administration, has grown exponentially. And the funny part about it is no one knows really how you get on the list. What is it that you do that winds up getting you on the list? And even more importantly, no one knows how you get off the list. So, let's take a step back. So you've got government bureaucrats who are sitting back and they're making decisions about who's going to wind up on this list. Maybe your name is spelled like somebody else's. I've seen this happen. I've seen people who, if they travel as Bob Patterson, then they're just fine. But if they sign up as Robert Patterson, well, maybe there's a terrorist or somebody who's on a watch list named Robert Patterson, and then all of a sudden, you're not allowed to fly. These are the sorts of things that have happened. We've had California Congressman Tom McClintock has been on the terrorist watch list. Matter of fact, the former late Senator Ted Kennedy was on the terrorist watch list. Now, obviously, these Washington politicians, once they bring up the fact that their name is on the watch list, probably it wasn't very difficult for them to get off. But what about John Q. Citizen? I know of at least three people. Interesting that they all tend to be of the conservative persuasion. But I know at least three people whose names were on the terrorist watch list for absolutely no reason at all. So you get on this watch list that's basically put together by some government to buy a gun until you try to fly or you try to go buy a gun. So let's say the first time you find out is when you go to buy a gun. So you go to buy a gun and you fill out all your paperwork and you go through your background check and your background check is turned down. And no one really tells you why your background check was turned down. If you find out that you're on the terrorist watch list, no one tells you who to contact in order to find out why your name is on the list. And no one tells you exactly there is no legal process in place for you to have your name removed from the list. Now, in the meantime, in some states, law enforcement is actually notified when someone who is not allowed to purchase a gun attempts to purchase a gun. So what does that mean? What comes from that? What are the chances that because you went to buy a gun and you weren't supposed to buy a gun, even though you didn't know it, now all of a sudden law enforcement shows up at your door and says, you have lost your right to own firearms. We're now here to confiscate your guns. And no, they didn't warn you before they came. They just show up. This is the problem with allowing someone to be on this terrorist watch list. And the scarier part is that there are a lot of people who would normally be our allies. They tend to be of the GOP persuasion. And they've got this desire to seem, they're like, look, we have to find a way to be, pro-gun control without being pro-gun control. We have to find a way to say we want to reduce these incidents, but they don't really think it through. And oftentimes, and I met with one office, The interesting thing was they said, when you start talking about the liberty versus security, when you start talking about the fact that you can wind up on this list and have absolutely no idea how to get off, they're having a difficult time with that argument, making that argument, because they're like, well, that's just not a really popular argument. Well, I don't know who you're talking to. But I will tell you right now, I think that if you look at the average person will definitely tell you that they will take security or liberty. They will not permanently give up their liberty for a sense of temporary security. What's that? What's the saying? Benjamin Franklin said, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." The fact is that, I always like to say this, rights are risky. They are. When you grant someone rights, what you're saying is that you realize that you're taking a chance, but you also understand that individual's fundamental civil liberties, their fundamental human rights, trump my right to feel safe. Because in the end, that's all it really is. Because we all know that, criminals and terrorists generally don't walk into gun stores. As a general rule, don't walk into gun stores and buy legal firearms, just as a general rule. Anyway, that's my perspective today. I know that as legislatures across the country are considering legislation, this month some are going to be introducing it and some are not. We had a gentleman in Wyoming who introduced a no-fly, no-buy bill. He's already pulled it. There was a bill in Hawaii that was heard in committee last week that actually got deferred, which basically means that bill is going to die. In Hawaii, that's interesting because that's actually a very liberal state. So that's telling you that people on both sides of the political spectrum are starting to understand that problem. They're starting to understand the problem with these secret lists that are put together by government bureaucrats. Now, on the other side, they tend to be more in favor of, they tend to be more defensive when it comes to the gang databases. But in this case, the point that I'm making is that people across the political spectrum are starting to get and understand the concept of individual liberty and the importance of protecting individual liberties, specifically when it comes to the right to keep and bear arms. Okay, those are my thoughts. Let's find out what your thoughts are. What do you folks think of liberty versus security? Are you willing to give up your liberty in order to secure some security? Let's see here. Someone needs to put Tom Brady on the list. He terrorized the Falcons with his cannon. Wow. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he kind of got him. Raphael says, watch list equals guilty without the possibility of proven otherwise. This is against the spirit of the Bill of Rights. Exactly, Raphael. We live in a country where basically you are innocent until proven guilty. You should not lose your civil rights when there's been absolutely zero adjudication. You've been given no due process. That's the problem also with gun violence restraining orders, where someone is able to go secretly to a judge and get your right to keep and bear arms taken away from you, and you don't even know. Due process is important. That's the reason why people have come out against what the Social Security Administration was being pushed to do, as well as the Veterans Administration, basically telling veterans, well, hey, if you have someone else handle your finances, we're going to deem you mentally incompetent, and therefore you lose your right to own a firearm. These are not people who've been deemed by a medical professional or a mental health professional to be mentally, for lack of a better term, defective or deficient. This is just an administrative decision. Due process is important. The fact that you are innocent until proven guilty is at the core. Now, I'm not saying it's always done that way. I do believe in many cases people are treated guilty until proven innocent. But when we start writing it into our policies and saying as a matter of policy, as a matter of law, you're guilty until proven innocent, I think at that point we've jumped the shark. Oh, and just to note, if you start off your question with, hey, Craig, sorry, I'm off topic, I'm not going to read the question, but I will probably go back and see if it's something that I can answer later via a comment. I refuse to surrender my rights. Yes, we should all refuse to surrender our rights. Thank you, Mark. The government has more terrorists within it than any other organization. There is no peace and safety there. They don't see themselves as terrorists because it's not their desire to seek violence upon people. But what they don't understand is through their policies, as they seek to disarm us and as they seek to remove our rights through fiat, that is an act of political terrorism. And it eats away at our society. And the worst part is that we have it on both sides. We have people who believe, they want government intrusion in one way or another, and we ought to all be working towards less government, and we need to be looking at more local government, decisions being made closer to us so that we can keep an eye on those guys. Anyway, once again, just one man's perspective. I know someone whose 16-year-old son is on the no-fly list and had to drive from California to Florida because he could not fly. Now, but that's the thing. So how does a 16-year-old who's probably never been, I don't know, didn't say here whether or not he's ever been out of the United States, but never been out of the United States, how does he get on the terrorist watch list? Nobody knows. And here in this case, they had to drive 3,000 miles in order to, so imagine now if a 16-year-old kid can wind up on there, imagine how many more other people are on the terrorist watch list. And I think even within all circles, they've acknowledged the problems with the terrorist watch list. Anyway, that's it for today's Coffee with Craig. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you folks have a fun and prosperous week, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Stay free.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.